aspects, two ways that shows the Yidden's, the Hashem's love for the Yidden. One thing is their names. Names is something that has to do with the essence. The person's name doesn't change from their youngest age to their oldest age. In other words, it doesn't have to do with their seichel. It awakens the essence. That's why you call out someone's name when he's in a faint, like Rabbi Yisrael Baal Shem Tov came down for the name of Klal Yisrael. But still, there is differences to a certain degree between the fact that every name has a certain meaning and has to do with a certain hashpah. So that's the names having to do with something having to do with differentiation. Whereas numbers show us something that's completely undifferentiated. It doesn't make a difference how great or how minor someone is. Everyone is an equal number. So numbers also show on something having to do with the essence. And the Rebbe says it's even higher of the essence. It depends which aspect. When we're talking about when do you use the level of name, that's the way the neshama comes down into the body. But when do you use a number? Number is indicating the level of the neshama, the way it's beyond any connection with the body, because only when the neshama connects with the body, that's when we use a name. Beforehand, it doesn't have a name before it's connected with a certain body. Now, that explains what we spoke about at the beginning of the Maimer about numbers versus names. Another issue we pointed out is the difference between, let's say, the stars that have numbers and names. By Yidden, it says that to show his favor for the Yidden, Mon bishmoisam, he counted them by their names, which means that there's another component. There is, or another idea, another concept over here, and that is the way the names and the numbers come together. So, based on what we just now said, that numbers is about the essence of the soul before it's connected with the body, and names is the way it's already connected with the body. That's what we're going to talk about, the joining of numbers and names together. Ois Hey, line 11 on page Yud. Zeo Eilish Mois Bnei Yisrael Haboi Mitzrayma Shemonam Bishmoisam Loidiach Kibosam. This is what it says. These are the names of Bnei Yisrael that are coming into Mitzrayim, that he counted them by their names. And that was to let know their love for them. How does a person serve Hashem, even though we were talking about the whole time the essence, and the essence is expressed in the name and even more so in the numbers, but actually serving Hashem, how is that done? That's done when a person uses his koich sagiluim, his revealed powers. That's not about numbers and names. Yet, the empowerment for the revealed powers, they should be able to do their service, is specifically through the essence shining in to the koiches hagiluim and empowering them and giving them the strength to overcome all obstacles. That's why Hashem needs to let know his love for them. It doesn't just say, because of his love for them, that's why he counted them again, or that's why he counted them by number or by name. The point is lehoidia, to inform. That love that has to do with the essence, the essence is beyond revelation. That has to be made known. It has to should come out in a revealed way. Through counting and calling them by name in a revealed way, because that's the idea. This idea is that he counts it with their names, or by their names. This is the combination of the two levels that we were talking about before. The level of the names, which refers to the ha'ara of the neshamas, the way they are in the body. That has to be the count. That's the revelation of the essence of the neshama. That's the reason. Why specifically does it say he counted when it says those are coming into Mitzrayim? He counted them. What's the emphasis of those that came into Mitzrayim? The need to let know and to reveal that their favor and the connection with Hashem's love, that has to do with the essence. It's for the sake of the names of the Bnei Yisrael that are coming into Mitzrayim. Coming into Mitzrayim means concealment, restrictions, which in a general way, the neshama in the body is called the going down to Mitzrayim. They says b'shvil ha'aras haneshama sheba b'Mitzrayim shel haguf, and Shabam is for the coming down of the ray of the neshama in the Mitzrayim and the goals of the guf and Shabam. Don't turn the page yet. There's a very interesting footnote over here, footnote 25. He says he's going to ask a very good question over here. When the Yidden originally came down to Mitzrayim, before in Parshas Vayigash, he goes into and he enumerates all 70 people that came down to Mitzrayim. When it's the beginning of our parsha, when it's focused even more on the idea of Mitzrayim and Golus, like he's soon going to mention, over there he doesn't mention all the 70s. All he mentions is the names of the Shvatim. The Rebbe wants to know, how does the names of the Shvatim accomplish this idea if you need to have the names to be in a way of revelation and so on. So let's look in footnote 25, the second line in the footnotes on the bottom. The reason why the pasuk at the beginning of our parsha only enumerates the names of the Shvatim, but he doesn't go into all the 70 souls. Shlomo, the Rebbe says, we could say, according to what's explained in a different place. He says, in the parentheses, the main division, the main differentiations of levels has to do with the Shvatim. The Shvatim are the ones that establish different types of avodah. He says in the parentheses, Kriyas Yamsuf Hoyle Yud Beis Gzorim. That's why the sea had to be split into 12 sections, 12 channels through which every Shevet went through. Therefore, the division of Eretz Yisrael was to the 12 Shvatim. Each one had their own section, primarily in Eretz Yisrael. Because the idea of both the splitting of the sea and Eretz Yisrael is about the individual avodah, the unique avodah. If Kriyas Yamsuf was only about Klal Yisrael in general and the service of Klal Yisrael in general, there would be no need for a division into parts. And the same thing if Eretz Yisrael was about Klal Yisrael serving Hashem, so you don't need that Yehuda should be here and Zvulun should be over there and Yisachar should be somewhere else. But since both Kriyas Yamsuf, as a forerunner perhaps, and then Eretz Yisrael, is about every individual's unique contribution, and the 12 Shvatim are the primary divisions, so both during Kriyas Yamsuf and during the division of Eretz Yisrael had to be by Shvatim. The Rebbe continues after the parentheses, every Jewish person has to have his shevet, had to have his he has in him, and he has a connection with that particular Shevet that he comes from. Like it's known concerning the gates, that for each Shevet there was an idea of a certain gate to enter in the Beis HaMikdash. And there's the level of the different nusach and davening that's explained that in Torah Or. Let's see in that the nusach and davening, the different nuschos has to do with different shvatim. And the Rebbe says that the Alter Rebbe made a nusach which is called a shar hakoilel, a gate that includes and that every shevet can go up. But in general, every shevet has their own derech and avodas Hashem, and their davening would reflect it differently. And then the Rebbe said, let's skip over the parentheses for a minute in this brackets, in this footnote, 2 lines down. Rak is shmois hashvatim, ki zeu iker inen his chalkos the bnei Yisrael. Therefore, he only enumerates the names of the shvatim because that's the primary division of the bnei Yisrael. Ubedugmas mata alekim shahoya biyad Moshe, similar to the staff, the godly staff that Moshe Rabbeinu had. Shal yodoi hoyu eser makis in Yitzias Mitzrayim v'kriyas Yamsuf, that had 10 makis were done through it, which the 10 makis is symbolic of both going on Mitzrayim, the splitting of the sea. It's brought down the Medrash and Targum Yisrael Nazil Sheichakukim by Yudei Shvatim, that the 12 Shvatim were engraved on that staff. So in other words, Yitzias Mitzrayim had to already have to do with the idea of the 12 separate Shvatim, because every person has their own avodah. And then the parentheses that we skipped, he brings down that the difference of the Avos and the Shvatim is like a lot of times we have in different Amarim, that every Shevet has their own particular avodah, and I don't have to have the avodah of every one of the Shvatim. But the Avos is every single Yid has to have the avodah of Avram, every single Yid has to have the avodah of Yitzchak, every single Yid has to have the avodah of Yaakov. Okay. So that's why it wasn't necessary, the beginning of our parsha, to enumerate all the 70 people that came down. Just by enumerating the names of the 12 Shvatim, which encompass the avodah of every single Yid, that is already the connection between the etzem that's beyond the body with the powers that inhabit the body. Let's go over to the next page, last page in the Maimer, page Yud Aleph. Va'ad, until this comes down all the way, Haboim Mitzrayma means for the sake of coming into the Egypt, the Mitzrayim, the Mitzarma Gvulim of the body, and the Nefesh Bahamis, and even literally into Golus. So it empowers them, through counting them by their names, also in the ray that's found in Mitzrayim, Meir Etzem Anashama Shloi Baba Mitzrayim, shines the essence of the soul that did not come down to Mitzrayim. Is Yesh Gam Bo HaKoyach Shloi Li Spoil Mahalamis Va'astedim Shalaguf Nefesh Bahamis. So now this is given, this Etzem Anashama that shines gives the power that should not be in such a way that it should be affected by the concealments of the hiddenness of the body and the nefesh bahamis. Allah adra, but just the opposite. L'mala tafkida, to fulfill its mission. L'varer saguf and nefesh bahamis v'chelke ba'olam, to refine the body and the animal soul and his allotted portion of the world, like the Rebbe always talks about. These are like the 3 things that our job is to do. We have to refine our own body, we have to refine the animal soul, and there's whatever we meet up with in this world, we have to refine it. And to transform them and to make them into a vessel for godliness. Let's check out on the bottom also here is an interesting footnote, footnote 26 and footnote 27. So first of all, he brings an interesting thing from the Torah Or. He says, and that's the beginning of the footnotes, he says, Rei Torah Or Vayetzich of Dalad Aleph, Shebegolus Ef Shalias Gili Bechinas HaAvis Ki Im Aide Ashvatim Ein Sham. We said before, we mentioned that in the parentheses in the previous footnote, it says that the Avis is something that every Yid has to have all the Avis. The Shvatim, no. If I'm from Shevet Reuven, I don't have to do the avoid of Shevet Yehuda. If I'm from Shevet Zvulun, I don't have to do the avoid of Shevet Naphtali. But in the time of Golus, that being said, and correct, but in the time of Golus, to tap into the avoida of the Avis, you need to have the level of the Shvatim. This is the Shvatim ensure that the Avis can come down and don't get stuck somewhere in some spiritual realm. Because we're in a state of Golus, the Shvatim has to bring that down into my world down here. So the Rebbe is going to connect it, that it reflects this idea of Manam Bishmoisam, that we need to take the essence that's beyond and bring it down into the number, bring it down to the names, which has to do with the neshama and the body, to bring the empowerment of the essence into the details, into the revelation, into the level of names. So the Rebbe is going to associate that with the others coming down through Shvatim. Again, top line in the footnotes, according to this idea that the Alter Rebbe says in Torah Or, that the revelation of the others comes only through the Shvatim, we could explain what it says, that he counted them by their names. Minyan inyane bechinas ha'avis shebechol echad miYisrael. The level of counting, the numbers part, that essence of the Yid, that empowerment for everything, that's the avis that every single Yid is. Or that's the connection, or that's what their empowerment of that they get from Avram, Yitzchak, Yankov. V'gilu yaminyan, to reveal the level of the count, bechinas ha'avis, which the number and the count is the level of the forefathers. It's through their names, the names of the Shvatim. So the Shvatim transmit just like the names transmit the Hamshachah down below. So the Rebbe explains a very interesting thing. Before we were emphasizing the names, when we were only talking about the number, Shivim Nafesh, there we counted all of them. V'shaminyan, the Shivim Nafesh, Bal Acher Pirish Rebus HaShvatim, it came after explicitly stating the names of the Shvatim. Ki bekulam tzarech liyas gili b'chinas etzem haneshama b'chinas ha'avis, because in all of them has to be the revelation of the essence of the neshama, which is the avis, v'gili zeh aidei Shvatim, and that takes place through the Shvatim. So you have the Shvatim were the first to be counted, then all the other members in the 70 in Parshas Vayigash, because they are the ones that transmit the others down to the Shvatim. And the Rebbe says in the next footnote, also a Geshmaka thing, I hope you forgive me for getting into the footnotes over here, in footnote 27. But this will be understood what my father-in-law said in the name of his father. The Frierdiker Rebbe said in the name of the Rebbe Rashab, nor unsere Gufim sein ewig gegeben in Golus v'shivat Malchus. Only our bodies were given into exile and to the enslavement of the governments. Aber unsere Neshamas hatten in Golus nicht vertrieben, but they did not send our Neshamas away into Golus. This he said on the train station, I believe, on the way to exile in Kasrama, indicating that they could only touch our bodies, but our spiritual commitment to Torah mitzvahs, they have no rights over. So the Rebbe asks a very simple question. The lechura, they avoided the Torah mitzvahs in beguf. To be able to do the avoid of Torah mitzvahs, we do with our body. What does it help to tell us? Well, the neshamas are not in exile, but you need a body. And if the government stops your body from doing a mitzvah, so your neshama doesn't matter seemingly to the avodah of Torah mitzvahs. So the Rebbe says a very geschmackig word over here. The fact that the essence of the soul did not go into exile. In other words, the neshama, if you skip the brackets, you see it. The neshama didn't go into exile. This also empowers the body. And because it empowers the body, even the body's being in exile is not really in exile because it's free through the neshama. Okay, let's go back into the text. We are holding on line 8. Proteus Yoiser the idea of counting them by name, which is Inyan Hashem. That's what we said, that the combination of counting them by name is because count has to do with the essence, name has to do with the body, and or the ray of the neshama in the body. So we are joining them together. Hu hein b'chayeyem v'hein b'misasim. Says also, the Medrash says that he counted them both while they were alive, in other words, Parshas Vayigash, and also in Parshas Shmos when they were a long time passed away. What's the significance of this? So he says in line 12, just like you should be able to be the empowerment and the ray of the neshama to fulfill its mission while being in the body. While they are alive, they should be able to do what they have to do. There has to be the essence of the neshama that's beyond being alive, that's higher than the neshama coming down to the body. Therefore, it has to emphasize hein b'chayehem, because we're talking about the essence connecting with the neshama that's in the body. That's when it's alive. Then there is also the other side of the coin. So too, on the other hand, just like the essence of the neshama empowers the ray of the neshama to fulfill its mission in this world, after the ray of the neshama completes its mission, its job, Bimisas, in other words, after 120 when it passes away, then he returns and counts them by their names. That the ray of the neshama affects an ascent in the essence of the soul. It makes the essence of the soul rise up to a higher level than it had before. You do it like it's known that the ascent that happens in the neshama through its descent down here below, it's not just in the ray of the neshama, through the order of the neshama, the body, and it is accomplishing it because of its bond with the essence of the soul. And to such a degree, the bond is that the entire essence is connected with that level that's in the body. That's why the Rebbe brings down from Amorim, from Marx to say this, that it's not possible for one body to be in multiple, it's not possible for one neshama to be in multiple bodies, because the etzem of the neshama, even though the entire essence doesn't come down, it's only a ray of the neshama. So why can't a ray of the essence come down in this body and a ray of the neshama come down in that body, and so on? Because the etzem is entirely bound up with that ray that's in the body. So when the ray of that essence is able and does what it's supposed to do, while being and thanks to being bound up with the essence of the neshama that gives it its power, therefore nasas aliyah gam be'etzem neshama. That's why it becomes an ascent also in the essence of the neshama. So therefore, he says both things: b'chayeyem u'musasam. On the one hand, b'chayeyem, the essence gives the power to the ray of the neshama in the body. On the other hand, after they pass away, the ray that was in the body caused an ascent, an elevation in the neshama, in the essence of the neshama above.